Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is the Total Basis Podcast. I'm your host, Felipe, not in jail. And with me, as always, is Sean Flannery. Sean, how you doing this morning?
I am good. I am also not in jail.
All right. Also not in jail is Austin Spiro. Austin, how you doing this morning?
I think if I was in jail, something would be horribly, horribly wrong because you would never find me in a jail cell.
Never say never, man. Never say never.
I'm doing all right. I have the baseball bug. I've gone and seen a couple baseball games. I'm gonna go see another one today. And now, it never fails. The first game I go and see, after that, I want to go see more and more and more. Like, I want to go see 3 a week. If I could, I'd go every other day and see a baseball game. So
yeah.
By the way, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. I almost forgot. I almost forgot that was my birthday, and not because I'm humble bragging, but it's because this whole time, I don't know if you guys know that our guy Doug was in town, was in Chicago this past week. So I ended up being like not his tour guide because we didn't do anything too special. Well, I mean, we did, but we didn't. It's not like I took him.
You were on Wrigley Field, but
literally, yeah. We all three of us, and then Jonathan was also there. All three of us were like, when we were told to get into the dugout, we were like, "Are we allowed to go into the dugout? Should we do we dare go into the dugout?" We did hesitate. There was like a slight hesitation with the three of us. But I've been in dugouts before. I've been to the one in Safeco. I've been to the one back in 2008. I was there. In the dugout, so it wouldn't be my first time, but something about Wrigley Field makes it even more hollowed, more I don't know, I don't want to use the word spiritual, but it definitely felt like it was a religious experience in terms of baseball. And of course, as you guys were alluding to earlier, yes, I did touch the ivy. I wasn't aware
that there was no hesitation about that.
No, it's just shit.
It's hesitation going into the dugout, but the dude sees grass on a wall and just
Yeah, well, it was dead at that time. I was like, I always wanted to see what that felt like, if it was prickly or if it was like I said on the other page, and you're listening to us live on the Baseball Life Facebook group, by the way, but we do have several life groups, including one that's secret, that's only invite only. And in there I did mention, hey, you know what, I grew up as a landscaper's kid. I couldn't help myself. It was instinct taking over. And that's when I was told, hey, that's the guy, hey, listen, this is a historical, what do they call those?
Landmark artifact.
Historical landmark, yes. It's a historical landmark. You're not supposed to touch it.
Endangered species of grass.
So I put my hands up like an outfielder. Ground rule. I didn't know. But yeah, but then he tells a story about Jim Edmonds, who played center field for the Cubs for a little bit. And same thing, a ball went into the ivy. And normally if you put your hands up, that's a ground rule double. But, Jim Edmonds knows that the base runner was kind of lollygagging it to second base. So he started digging for the ball. And as he reached for the ball kept falling down deeper into the ivy. Now imagine, it's easy to do it when it's bare. When the walls are bare right now because of the weather, it's probably easy to snatch the ball. You might get a scratch here or there. But when it's like thick and full of shrubbery, oh, good luck to you. You're not getting to that ball. And the ball just kept hiding. And Evan's like, at one point, he's just grabbing it and just starts shaking and I think to myself, hey, how come he wasn't yelled at for the historical landmark?
Because he was a Major League Baseball player.
I don't care. He's ruining my historical landmark. My tax-paying dollars, apparently.
Tax maintained ivy.
The tamed ivy. So yeah, and then what they told
it was
story.
Dead. So how well is it maintained?
Well, it dies every year.
It dies every year, and then it regroups. But he tells a story about Rizzo just messing around one day in right field, I guess, and then he digs deep and he notices something very peculiar. He grabs, and it's a baseball, but it's not one of those new baseballs. It's one of those old ass baseballs. And they took it to a lab, and it turns out that the baseball was from like the early 1940s.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. Honestly, I do. Yeah. That was probably about 6-7 years ago, maybe. I vaguely remember hearing about that.
Yeah, I guess I fell asleep on that story because that's how deep those. I know Sean was mentioning earthworms before we started the show, but that's how deep that ivy goes. The ivy goes really deep. It just layers upon layers. So that's why I always wanted to touch it. And I also remember that there was this one outfielder for the San Diego Padres who was, trying to catch a fly ball hit towards him. and I guess he forgot that the ivy is not a cushion, and he just bam right into the wall. And I don't think we ever heard from that guy ever again. And I think his last name was Jimenez. I mean, it's an old ass game. Between the Padres
and that was the end of him.
Probably. And so that's why I was kind of curious. I wanted to touch the wall. I wanted to touch the ivy. And yeah, it's the ivy's hard. The brick wall is hard. But you know, when it's in bloom, the whole Wrigley field is just green everywhere. Just green grass, green walls, green scoreboards, just green everything. It breathes with you, man. It's a really beautiful sight. If you've never done the tour, even if you're in Chicago, just go do the tour.
The tour is fun. When we went there, the tour was very enjoyable.
I didn't know you were there.
Yeah. Way back when I was in high school, and my dad was being the obnoxious Mets fan in the back. And he was like, he said something about all the pennants that the Cubs had waving around. And, well, no, but it's more than they have like pennants for like division or World Series wins, and this was before they won the World Series. Right. But they had like the 2 actual division pennants, and then they had like a pennant for a former owner or a pennant for this, and there were like 20 something of them. And my dad nudges the tour guide, one of them, and he goes, "I think the Yankees have more than in just World Series pennants than you guys have total." Probably. And I was like, "Oh my god!" He did the same thing during the Dallas Cowboys tour too. I honestly thought I was going to die.
What was that?
Guys, and did you guys hear last week? Nico Horner and the ivy found that outfielder that crashed into the ivy.
Oh wow! Yeah. But what's Nico Horner doing in the outfield? He doesn't hit the ball over there.
I don't know. What's Anthony Rizzo doing in the outfield?
Well, Anthony Rizzo does whatever he wants, man. He's World Series champion over there.
Gabagoo! I go to the ivy when I want to.
Oh, because he's Italian.
No, because yes.
All right, that's what I thought. No,
the first word you thought was gabagool.
But no, it's a pretty, like I said, do it. But yeah, Doug was here, so I kind of forgot it was my birthday because I was running, because I don't live in Chicago. I mean, I do in Chicagoland, but I'm all the way in the suburbs. All the way in the suburbs. I'm not. I don't even live close to O'Hare, which is also in the suburbs. O'Hare Airport, that being. Yeah. So I'm literally driving to the very heart and internal organs, the guts of the city, which is downtown area, and then Wrigleyville the next day. So yeah, just rushing from the suburbs, and with the baby until too. So I usually my wife helps me when we do these trips, but I was on my own this week, so it's been pretty hectic. So yeah, so that's why I kind of forgot that it was my birthday, because you know, I don't know. I feel like it. I don't know. I feel like there's too much stress in my life for it to be my birthday for me to enjoy it, because I'm more of a homebody. I'm a busybody. That's why this podcast was created, just so I can have something to do and hang out with people online. And then to get me out of this element and get me to go outside was kind of different. But I enjoyed it, man. It was great to see Jet. Great to see Brad. Brad came over from Milwaukee. Jet came from Wisconsin as well. Gave us some cheese.
I was about to say, did he bring cheese?
Oh, he always brings cheese.
Yeah,
he always brings. Robert is what. Robert was there as well. Robert the Reverend was there as well. So that was pretty cool to see him again. I haven't seen that guy in more than 10 years. So because we used to work together. So that was cool to see. So yeah, it's been a pretty eventful week for me. Anyway, we are here to talk about baseball. I mean, we were talking baseball, right? Wrigley Field is a baseball park, so it's still a baseball show. But let's get this one out of the way. Trevor Bauer, he's suspended. You guys mentioned that he went from he's still owning 50% of CBS. By the way, we're going to talk about under the radar pitchers, or basically pitchers who have an ownership rate of less than 60% over at CBSSports.com. But Trevor Bauer is still owning 50% of baseball leagues over at CBS Sports. It was a big stink about it in the Total Basis Podcast League, where guys were, "Hey, you're gonna drop him, right? You're gonna drop him. You got to drop him now. Drop him." Like, no, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait and see what the appeal says, because you never know, right, Sean? You never know when that 2-year suspension becomes, I don't know, a 2-month suspension. Optimist, right?
And honestly, anytime someone tells me, "Oh, you're gonna drop that guy," right? Like, no, just don't tell me how to run my team, and I won't tell you how to run your team.
Right. Unless you listen to the show.
I almost say no just because they want to.
Exactly.
I was going to, but now I'm not.
Because now I'm not.
I was gonna say, unless you're listening to the show, then you do it because we tell you to do it. So, but no, it's like I told the guys, it's like there's really nobody there that's better than Trevor Bauer on waivers right now, really. So I might as well wait. I know, Sean, you had him in the Baseball Live League, but you just told me you didn't wait.
Yeah, he was dropped on Monday. I was a little worried about hitting, or actually it might have been before this last weekend series. I was a little concerned about like getting pitchers out there, and I'm trying to win strikeouts and stuff like that every week. And I cut him, picked up somebody that was hot. I think it was Blackburn. So one of those, I'll just get the guy that can help me now.
Which Patrick Blackburn we're not going to talk about because he's owning 64% of leagues.
It's not Patrick, it's Paul.
Oh, did I say Patrick?
You said Patrick. That's Patrick Sandoval.
Patrick Sandoval. Well, Paul Blackburn owning 64% of leagues, so he just misses the cutoff right there. But there are other pitchers to talk about. But let's start with the relief pitchers. There's two of them that I want to shed a light on because they are taking over. They're getting saves like we never thought they would get saves, and that's two guys: Danny Jimenez from the Oakland Athletics and Jorge Lopez of the Baltimore Orioles. It's the A's and the O's, two teams that seemingly are going nowhere. Although I think the A's are still they're in contention right now.
They have a winning record right now.
What the hell is this?
I'm telling you, the A's just do the craziest shit, and it's either they end up a competitive team or they're one of the worst, but then the very next year they win the division. Like I feel like those are the two choices.
Yeah, they're trying to do what the Rays are trying to do, which are the Rays are trying to do what the A's have been doing, but it's at this point the Rays are doing it better than the A's.
Oh yeah, definitely 100%.
But then the A's are like, hey, remember, we're the godparents of the Moneyball thing. So at this point, the Athletics are 10-11, so they're in fourth place, but they do have 10 wins, which is better than the White Sox, the Guardians, the Royals, the Tigers, the Bears. Oh my, the Rangers, the Orioles we just mentioned, and the Red Sox. The A's have more wins than all those teams I just mentioned. So that should tell you all you need to know about this wacky season so far. Excuse me. So Danny Jimenez, let's start with him. Danny Jimenez having a pretty good season so far, according to the Fangraphs machine I got in front of me. 4 saves. Strikeout rate is not at that as high as I thought it could be, but still a respectable 23.7%. Does a good job of controlling his walks. Doesn't give up a lot of walks. And throws it at a 93.8 four-seam fastball there, Sean. Anything else you want to tell me about Danny Jimenez?
I would not go out there and spend a bunch of fab money or anything on Danny Jimenez. He's still just filling in for Lou Trevino. Lou Trevino is still alive. He's just on the COVID IL. They had that outbreak that started about a week and a half ago, and a couple of people have come off it already. A couple of people are still on it. Lou Trevino is one of those. Jimenez, to me, just feels more like one of those bullpen filler guys. If I had to pick somebody in that Oakland bullpen that would take over for Trevino if he's traded, it's not even Danny Jimenez. It's AJ Puck, who just had a scoreless 4-strikeout outing, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. And he has a little bit more of the prospect pedigree strikeout stuff that you would like to see in a fantasy reliever.
All right, well, here's the latest on Lou Trevino. Trevino will begin a rehab assignment at Single A Stockton on Sunday. This is 21 hours ago, by the way. The right-hander has been on the COVID-19 injury list since April 18th, but he'll now return to game action with the Athletics minor league affiliate. Manager Mark Kotze. Look at that. Ooh. I forgot all about him. Is he with the old? Is he?
Yeah, he's Oakland's. Yeah, he's
wow.
He took over for Bob Melvin. Kotze was, I think, already in their dugout. He wasn't a bench coach, something like that. It was like an assistant of some sort.
Wow, I missed that. I missed the memo on that one. That's good for him, man. You talk about baseball lifer right there. Mark Kotze said Saturday that Trevino will be evaluated on a game-by-game basis to determine when he'll be cleared to rejoin the Major League club. And as of right now, he is expected to be out until at least May 6th, which would put us, till Saturday? Yeah. So I would say that if you have Danny Jimenez or you pick them up thinking that, oh, man, he must be getting all the saves, I would suggest you go ahead and just start him right now, especially if you're in a weekly league. You're at least guaranteed some save opportunities in the first half of the week, this upcoming week, and then we'll see what happens on May 6th. But I know the A's that's a weirdly built team, but for some reason it looks like they're gonna trust Danny Jimenez to be the main closer for now. What about you, Austin? Not Danny Jimenez, but the other guy, Jorge Lopez, who. That's the guy. Oh, the claim to fame for Jorge Lopez for me is that when he was with the Royals, he started hitting every Astros player known to man in a spring training game, and he was like everybody's favorite player for a little bit. But what do you think about Jorge Lopez of the Baltimore Orioles there, Austin?
So when you look at it, it looks like Jorge Lopez is overplaying, or he's overperforming a little bit right now. His K per nine is higher than his normal career. Obviously, I mean, he's only played in 10 games, but that's still a third of his 2021 season. He pitched in 33 games and actually started 25 of those in the 2021 season. He had a K per nine of 8.28. Now as a reliever in 2022, he has an 11.12 K per nine. So, the fact that he's a converted starter and it looks like he may be going into the bullpen or even the closing role may help him in terms of getting his strikeout numbers up. What I'm noticing here is he has the same walk rate. His strikeout rate is up, and but the thing is, his K percentage right now is up about 10%. So I have a feeling he's not going to get as much strikeouts as the season goes on. I think those will drop a little bit. And the other thing that I am kind of wary of when it comes to Jorge Lopez is he's an Oriole. He's in Camden Yards. So any pitcher in Camden Yards, I'm a little wary of. Even when John Means was somebody to be fantasy relevant, I was still kind of wary of him because he's an Oriole. He's in Camden Yards. So, but he's racking up saves right now. And on top of that, the Orioles they're not like the A's. They don't have a winning record. So how many save opportunities is he really going to get down the stretch? So I think out of the two of them right now, I would go with Danny Jimenez over Jorge Lopez. But if you have Jorge Lopez, might as well ride the hot streak while you got him.
And that's to be seen with former relief pitchers who are now for former starting pitchers who are converted to relief pitchers. Their strikeouts will go up just because they don't have to pace themselves. They don't have to throw multiple pitches. They're actually encouraged to throw just maybe one or two pitches per outing, and they only see a lineup once, and that's it. So.
Well, you see, that's the thing that I kind of like about Jorge Lopez this year is, like you said, usually those converted starters, they ditch two pitches and they either will throw like the fastball slider, fastball curveball, and then they'll occasionally throw a changeup. Jorge Lopez isn't doing that. He's kept the entire arsenal, much like Seth Lugo kept the entire arsenal when he went to relief. And the biggest change and why I believe in Jorge Lopez now, I didn't at the very beginning of the year. He was an SPRP eligible player in my 30-team league, and he got dropped. And I was like, wow, I'm going to pick him up. And then the first week of the season, he was terrible. I mean, he didn't get a save. He gave up like 3-4 runs. And I think since then he's given up 1 run total. And now he's averaging 98 miles an hour on his sinker. That is up from 95.3 on his sinker in 2021. The whiff rate on that pitch has doubled from last year, and he's still throwing a curveball, changeup, slider mix. And the secondaries, they're batting 111 against the curveball, 167 against the changeup. They're whiffing a lot on the slider, 70% whiff rate on the slider, which he's throwing 12% of the time. Big believer in Jorge Lopez this year. Anytime you can get that velo to jump like that by nearly 3 ticks is huge. And I'm less worried about Camden now than I used to be with the Great Wall of Ripken or whatever the hell they're calling that monstrosity out in left field. I like Jorge Lopez, and he's like my first mistake of the year that I'm looking at because I only had him. I think Jacob maybe dropped him, and Jacob was like, you can have him, dude. He's frustrating as hell because he had a good little run at the end last year as a reliever. And I picked him up and I was like, yeah, I got another SP eligible closer. That's awesome. And I started him for a week and I was like, nah, I'm not dealing with that. And now the stack team in the league has him and he's picking up saves out of his SP slot. And it's very frustrating.
All right. Speaking of SPs, let's move on to a starting pitcher. So I'm trying to figure out how to do this, but I guess I'll just do it by, I have 9 pitchers, including Christian Javier, but I feel like we should talk about Christian Javier on his own. So let's just go with these 3 pitchers who have, let's make it 4 pitchers, right? And 4 pitchers who have a Sierra about 390. And that's Michael Lorenzen, Michael Wacha, Chad Cool or Jordan Montgomery. Austin, who do you want to talk about? Just pick one player.
Let's talk about Lorenzen since he's an Angel.
Go ahead.
So Michael Lorenzen, I will admit, excuse me, as an Angel fan, I was not too happy with the fact that out of all of the pitchers we had on the market, they got Michael Lorenzen. However, it's very interesting watching the Angels right now because they have a really good offense. I believe they're still leading the league in home runs, but what's really been helping them is their starting pitching. They've had a great start from Patrick Sandoval. They've had a great start from Noah Syndergaard. Ohtani's kind of he had a really good start against the Astros, but apart from that, it's been kind of shaky. With a lot of command issues, but then Michael Lorenzen has also stepped up. So Michael Lorenzen right now has a 2-1 record in 3 games started with a 2.93 ERA, 15 and a third innings pitched. So you think of it, he's averaging about 5 innings a start. He's only allowed 9 total hits and 5 total runs. And he's walked 6 people with 12 strikeouts. So I mean, he's got a 20% strikeout rate right now and a 10% walk rate. I actually like Michael Lorenzen right now. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is his FIP is 2 runs higher than his ERA. His FIP is at 4.2, or I guess it's about a 1-run difference because he's got an ERA of 2.93 and his FIP is at a 4.2. So he's really starting to, I'm sorry. Actually, his FIP is at a 4.55. Yeah. So he's relying a lot on the defense. While, Andrew Velasquez has stepped up in David Fletcher's place and has become a pretty good defensive replacement shortstop for Fletch. And Fletcher is a good defensive shortstop and second baseman as it is there. When it comes to pitchers that rely on the defense in order to be successful, if that defense is not on point, they're going to give up a lot of runs. Or if they just hit it where the ball, or the hitters just hit it where the ball isn't, or where the fielders aren't, those pitchers are going to struggle. So there may come a time where Michael Lorenzen does struggle, but I mean, he's on fire right now, and he's on a Angels team that's rolling right now. So, I think Michael Lorenzen is worth a look.
Sean, over to you. Since you talked about Lorenzen, you've got 3 pitchers to pick one from the litter here. And the list again is Jordan Montgomery, Chad Cool, or Michael Walker. And again, these are guys with Sierras above 390. Who do you want to talk about? You're on mute.
I guess we'll go with Walker here.
Waka.
Yeah, right, it's so crazy to think that Michael Walker is only 30 years old. It feels like he's been around for literally ever. Of course, he, as a Mets fan, he's not liked a whole lot because he was a part of that prior to 2020. They brought in Michael Walker and Rick Porcello to fortify the rotation. Mm-hmm. And, the GM at the time, Brody Van Wagenen, really tried to sell it as like, these are 2 great starting pitchers, to slot in behind. It was to replace Zach Wheeler and another starter we had lost from 2019. And he ended up going out there with a 6.62 ERA, gave up 9 home runs in only 34 innings. But I did kind of notice something with him that year. He had 37 strikeouts in 34 innings, and he's always had the great changeup. But that year he started working on a cutter, and he only threw it 27% of the time then. He's throwing a little bit less now, and it seems that it's gotten people off of his fastball. And the changeup is still good. It's always been good. But the fastball, despite only averaging 93, do I think Michael Walker keeps it up? Probably not. A lot of his metrics, he's getting hit hard. He's not getting as much chase rate, to chase on the cutter and the changeup. But I think it's anytime you have someone with a caliber of a pitch like Michael Walker's changeup, there's someone to keep an eye on because it makes all of the rest of their repertoire play up. And Michael, like we said, Michael Walker is only 30 years old. we think of him like he's some sort of dinosaur, but here he is. Tampa couldn't fix him either. Boston's using him this year, and he's off to a nice little hot start. So we'll keep him with that. But he's kind of also in the same boat as Michael Lorenzen. Huge gap between ERA and FIP. Over 2-run difference from 177 to 398. A super crazy low, just like Lorenzen as well. Lorenzen had like a 179 BABIP against. Michael Walker has a 154 BABIP against right now, and his expected batting average against this year is, just had it pulled up and it's gone away on me, but it's definitely much, much higher than the 154 BABIP right now. So interesting, ride the hot streak. His expected batting average right now is 220. They're actually batting 143 against him. So definitely a good bit of luck built in there with Michael Walker.
All right. And again, Jordan Montgomery and Chad Cooler are the other two guys. Jordan Montgomery's he'll get 2 starts this week. One of them is against the Blue Jays. And I already forgot what the other one was supposed to be. Let me see if I can look it up really quick. Jordan Montgomery. There he is. Oh, against Ross Stripling. And then the next one is against the Rangers at home versus Taylor Hearn. So if you're desperate for 2-start pitchers in the upcoming week, Jordan Montgomery might be the guy to get this upcoming week. All right. So that's that. Then we move on to, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4. We got 4 pitchers. We might be able to tackle all of them, but let's start with Bruce Zimmerman, since we were talking about the Orioles. Sean, what can you tell me about Bruce Zimmerman?
Literally nothing. I just know he's off to a hot start. I have not looked at Zimmerman at all. He was available in a couple of leagues. I want to say he's another guy. Velocity is up in that Oakland team.
Orioles.
Yeah. What team did I say? Just team.
Oakland.
Yeah.
Patrick Blackburn, Paul Blackburn.
No. So yeah, the velocity is only still at 90. He looks like he's the kitchen sink guy. Changeup, slider, curve. They're batting 556 against his 90-mile-an-hour fastball, but 182 against the changeup. And hitters have not recorded 1 hit against his slider or curveball, which he's combined to throw 30% of the time. Not 1 hit.
Okay. Wow. So go pick him up, or
I don't know. He looks like a batting practice fastball.
Yeah.
But the slider and curveball are kind of insane. I don't know what to think about that. Normally, I would run the other way, just because unless he starts throwing that slider or curveball as his primary pitch, then I'm not going to go after somebody like that.
It's so weird because because I got all 9 players. Like I said, I got a list of 9 players in front of me, and I have them all like sorted by Sierra. And Bruce Zimmerman has the highest strikeout rate of all those pitchers that we've just been talking about here, and also has hitters chasing his pitches away from the strike zone, and gives up the least amount of contact outside the strike zone as well. But he also has a 45% zone rate, which is the pitches he throws inside the strike zone. It's a very weird profile that I'm seeing here, but it seems to be working. The fact that he has a higher strikeout rate than a guy like Chris Paddack, who has a very high pedigree in terms of being a prospect, a higher one than Michael Lorenzen, who's a converted relief pitcher, now a starting pitcher, so the opposite of Jorge Lopez. And I don't know, man, it's the weirdest thing. And again, he's an Orioles player, so it's hard to trust those guys, but it is just the damnedest thing that you can't argue with the numbers right now.
It's a near exactly, almost to the decimal point. His ERA is 0.93, expected ERA 3.92. So nearly exactly 3 runs higher between ERA and expected ERA for Bruce Zimmerman. That slider's a hell of a pitch, but he's only throwing it 15% of the time, has a 65% whiff rate, no hits allowed. But unless he just goes to that as like a main pitch, I'm out on Zimmerman. Sell high.
Well,
So
not only that, when you look at his baseball savant sliders, I mean, it is really weird profile to look at. His K percentage is in the 68th percentile. His chase rate is in the 83rd percentile, but he gets hit hard. I mean, really hard, because he's in the bottom 8% in the league in average exit velocity, which is at a 92.4.
Yep.
Right now. So when he gets hit hard, but right now they're just not hitting it. But I would not pick him up, because sooner or later the hitters are going to figure it out and they're going to hit him. And when they're going to hit him, they're going to hit him hard. So I would not pick up Zimmerman, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is a concern there. The other thing, so that's one pitcher down. Who did you, it was Austin, I haven't heard from you in a bit. Who did you want to talk about? Now that list once again is, hold on, I'm just trying to do a little bit of a restructuring here. Here we go. Chris Paddack, Dylan Bundy, or Daniel Lynch?
Let's do Chris Paddack. So I gotta switch around mine and pull up my stuff. Chris Paddack, is on the Twins now. I thought, why did I think he was on the Padres still?
Yeah, there was a late season spring trading trade between the Padres. Emilio Pagan is also with the Twins now, and Taylor Rogers is with the Padres, and some hitter, I forgot the hitter's name, but I'm sure it's a bench piece.
What I think is interesting now that I'm looking at Chris Paddack is 14 2/3 innings. He has 7 or almost an 8 K per 9. He's got 3.68 ERA, which is actually higher than his expected ERA. His expected ERA is a 2.15. His FIP is at a 1.69. So what that's telling me is his defense is actually hurting him behind him there. So his struggles, I guess you want to call it, right now, according to the stats, are not his fault. So that could very well right itself. I would be more confident in picking up Paddack in terms of those numbers than I would be Bruce Zimmerman. His average exit velocity is way better. He doesn't get hit as hard. He's in the 66th percentile. And most of his sliders are in the red. The only sliders that are not in the red are strikeout percentage and fastball percentage. But he's in the 86th percentile in chase rate, 61st percentile in whiff, 77th percentile in barrel percentage, and 96th percentile in walk percentage. So he's not going to walk anybody. They got to hit him, and they don't hit him very hard. Compared to Bruce Zimmerman there, his average exit velocity is 87.4, about 5 miles an hour slower than coming off the bat. Right. So I think if you would have to choose between Bruce Zimmerman or Chris Paddack, by far I would go with Chris Paddack. And they're going to rely on him a little more now that Bailey Ober is down. So Bailey Ober he's still starting, right?
Yeah,
he's on the IL.
Well, yeah, he's on the IL, but he was
Chris
starting.
Paddack.
Paddack is starting. Yeah,
Paddack is starting. So they're going to rely on him a little more now to even go, I think, a couple more innings now that they're down a starting pitcher, because when you go down a starting pitcher, that's more of a strain on the bullpen for whoever that replacement is. So all the other starting pitchers are going to have to step up and pitch more innings. So I think the defense will right itself, and I think you'll see the numbers start to sway back down for Chris Paddack with these trends that he's having in terms of his pitching alone. So I would look at Chris Paddack way earlier than I look at Bruce Zimmerman.
Yeah. And from one Twins player to another, Dylan Bundy's on this list. The Twins are having a heck of a year so far. Let's see, where were they again? I think they're they just have a lot of good pitchers on that team, and it's just, I don't know. Okay, so they're 12-9 right now, which that's how I pictured them to be last year, not this year. This is Sean's pick to click for the AL Central, but I think pitching and the fact that Byron Buxton is healthy for once is leading the way. But what can you tell me about Dylan Bundy? We've seen this before from him, where he gives you some good starts and puts together a good season. He did it before with the Angels and then imploded the next year, but now he's with the Twins. Is this a good sign that Dylan Bundy is off to a really good start and perhaps maybe even go all the way with this throughout the year?
I don't know. I mean, it's like the fastball is batting practice. And I just said it with Bruce Zimmerman. Dylan Bundy's four-seam fastball is even slower. It's averaging 89 miles an hour. I mean, we're getting closer to the approaching Jamie Moyer territory here.
Yeah, the Kyle Hendrixes of the world.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're going to ask me about Kyle Hendrix, and I'm going to have to use BP fastball again. But
hold on. What a difference a year makes. Last year, everybody was giving me so much shit for not picking up Kyle Hendrix early in last year's baseball life trap. Now this year, he's just a batting practice pitcher. Like, it's like I've been saying that all along about Kyle Hendrix.
I would trust Kyle Hendrix over the Dylan Bundys and Bruce Zimmermans of the world. No, I'll say that
for sure.
But the slider is back to being kind of good. The fastball's still kind of bad with Dylan Bundy. Everything is meh. Dylan Bundy is meh. And that's it. But at the same time, like their rotation, like you were talking about, it's like there's not one standout. I mean, Joe Ryan's off to a great start to his young career. Bailey Ober and is a guy, and Chris Paddock's a guy that really are like antithetical to what teams do now. They're very good command guys with fastballs that are play above their velos. But Dylan Bundy is he's Dylan Bundy. Like he had the 1 year in 2020, had everybody fooled that he was actually good. And then he was just Dylan Bundy again.
Is the same Dylan Bundy that scored 5 touchdowns in one game?
Yeah, that Dylan Bundy.
That Polk High, right? Go ahead, Austin. What are you going to say?
Here's the other problem with Dylan Bundy. Not only is his batting, and not only is his fastball a batting practice fastball, when you look at his arsenal, he's leaving it in the middle of the plate. I mean, when you look at what zone he's throwing it in, I mean, he is lighting up the middle of the plate with that batting practice fastball.
Well, so is Chris Paddack, though. Chris Paddack on this list is the highest guy. He has his highest zone rate of anybody here. And you were just marveling at Chris Paddack, but you're going to trash Dylan Bundy for almost doing the same thing.
The thing with Bundy is, we're all looking at, or at least I know Austin and I are, but that fastball especially with where he pairs his slider up, that four-seam fastball and sinker, he runs into right-handers, and coming out of the hand, the release points are pretty similar. He does a good job of mirroring that. And that slider, you either have to think in and try and get in front of that fastball sinker that's right in on your hands on the black part of the zone, or it just breaks away. Because the slider he's always done that with his slider. It's a good pitch that he can get whiffs on as well as throw it for a strike, which is very hard to do. And I give credit for Bundy kind of learning how to do that.
Well, and here's the other thing with Chris Paddack, though. Yes, Chris Paddack's ball fastball is kind of in the middle of the plate, but he's throwing it high in the zone. His curveball and his changeup, which he uses as well, he's throwing that low in the zone. So he's got that curveball and that changeup trying to throw it in the dirt for that batter to chase it, and then he throws that fastball high. So that high fastball is going to look 2 to 3 miles an hour faster now that it's high in the zone, and they just had to fish for a curveball or a changeup in the dirt, right? Whereas Dylan Bundy is throwing that four-seam. I'm not kidding, like right in the middle of the plate. I mean, he's throwing it in the middle of the plate, in the middle of the zone, not high, not low. The slider is in the same spot. He's throwing it in. The changeup, he's throwing it like low or middle of the plate, kind of outside. And that sinker he's throwing outside. All of his pitches are kind of in the same area. Whereas Chris Paddack is varying his location. He's hammering low, and then he goes high with that fastball. So he's changing that eye level, whereas Dylan Bundy is not. So I think that's where you're seeing the separation in performance between Chris Paddack and Dylan Bundy.
Well, I mean, if we're talking that, Dylan Bundy's been off to a quicker start. Whether those results are indicative of future results, Bundy is off to the better record. But this is comparing a north-south guy like Paddack to an east-west guy like Dylan Bundy. And Dylan Bundy, like you said, yes, he has that one hot zone with the fastball right in the middle, but there's an even bigger one inside the right-handed hitters, and the sliders are all inside the left-handed, away from right-handed batters. I think with Bundy, though, it's an interesting thing that when he does throw the fastball down the middle, it's often either right before or right after he throws a slider that breaks out of the zone. And so they start in the same spot. And even when he had that great season in LA, hitters did not look comfortable against that 90-mile-an-hour fastball because they were waiting on the slider. So I like Paddock more than Bundy. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I'm not going to say a north-south guy is automatically better than a pitcher that works east-west.
I'm not saying that either. But what I'm saying is it's with Paddock, it's much more of a stark difference. You see that he is throwing that fastball high and the rest of it is low. Whereas Bundy, it looks more like he's throwing it all in the same spot, or it all lands kind of in the same zone. Yeah, he's got hot spots in different places, in some different places, but a lot of that stuff, or a lot of his pitches, look like they land in kind of the same area of the strike zone.
Kind of curious here. I noticed that Chris Paddack and Dylan Bundy have done a really good job of controlling their walks. And I remember just kind of offhanded remark in the offseason. I did say, hey, Dylan Bundy might be a thing in Minnesota. And everybody was, no, it's Dylan Bundy. He sucks. No, man, you never know.
That
might
whole
be something.
The whole Minnesota rotation is kind of like how we talked about Seattle the last few years, of these prospects that they signed and drafted with plus command. You look at the Minnesota rotation. These are all guys that were elite command artists in the minor leagues. Joe Ryan never walked anyone. Lots of strikeouts. Bailey Over never walked anyone. Good amount of strikeouts. Paddock never walked anyone. Good amount of strikeouts. So they definitely have a type. And, so
it's cheaper that way.
Yeah, and they did it very subtly because these weren't guys they drafted and were huge prospects. Bailey Over was not a huge prospect, but I remember looking at his numbers in the minors and I was like, why the hell does nobody talk about this guy?
Hey, hold on now. Bailey Over is pretty huge. Isn't he like 6'9" or something?
I was about to make a 6'9" joke too.
On the regular?
Yeah, he beat me
rainbow colored hair, tattoos on his face. He snitches on everybody. Who is he, Mike Fiers?
Hey, Mike Fiers had good command. Maybe he could fit in on this Minnesota rotation.
He's in Mexico right now.
Oh, God.
In Mexico. Their snitches get glorified over there. No, they don't. They get killed.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, depends on your definition of glorified.
Glorified in song. 6 feet in the grave. 6'9" in the grave. Okay, so God. Here's the Twins, right? The four-man rotation that Roster Resource has going. Chris Archer has a 13.6 walk rate. Obviously the highest on the list there. And then Joe Ryan at 7.2, Dylan Bundy at 3.6, and then Chris Paddock at 1.7. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous what they do over there. So good for them. And the last guy, Sean, I'll give him to you. Daniel Lynch, big time Royals prospect. I think it was a former first rounder. Is he cut it? What's the word I'm looking for? Is he breaking out right now, or is this just flash in the pan kind of thing for him?
I'm holding because, like you said, he's still young. He's 25. He was a first round competitive balance pick. I don't know. All of those Royals pitchers I'm gun shy on because they were all so anticipated, and then they came up, and then it didn't work for really any of them. I feel like Lynch, they've been using Singer out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
But I feel like Lynch would be a good bullpen guy. I don't think I necessarily want him to be a starter. I would like him in the bullpen where he can ditch everything else. Because the slider's pretty good. Even last year, the slider was by far his best pitch, and his fastball just kind of meh. The slider isn't getting as many whiffs this year, but they're still not hitting it very well this year. 232 WOBA against. Granted, he's getting a little lucky. 349 expected WOBA against on the fastball or on his slider. But the Royals pitchers I'm iffy on. Just I don't want to get burned again. That's how I am with all their arms right now.
Well, I'll give you this, man. Outside the zone, the 5 pitchers that are remaining here, including Christian Javier, we're talking about Chris Paddock, Dylan Bundy, Bruce Zimmerman, and Daniel Lynch. Of those 5 guys, Lynch is causing the highest amount of swings outside the strike zone at 37%. Also has the highest swing rate. I mean, I always look for that because it just shows that they're forcing hitters to swing at pitches. Most likely that they don't that hitters don't want to swing at, but the command is so good that they can't help it. Okay, so let's look at the contact rate outside the strike zone contact rate, 57.4%. Again, the lowest guy on the list is Bruce Zimmerman at 51.9. So he's not giving up a lot of contact, and the exit velocity is under 90 miles an hour. And then what's the last thing I want to look at? Hard hit rate. Oh shit, never mind. The hard hit rate's at 50% according to Statcast.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've seen pitchers survive and be good enough and be productive with really high hard hit rates. But man, that might be too high. That might be way too high.
I mean, I'm just looking at, he throws the slider for a lot of strikes, and maybe this year compared to last year, he had a plus 40% whiff rate on that slider. This year it's down to below 30%. It's actually at 27, which is less than his changeup. Maybe he doesn't need to throw it in the zone as much. I mean, it's impressive. Anytime I can see someone who throws their breaking ball consistently for strikes, that's good. But they also have to throw it for strikes as well as get swings and misses on it. And some pitches, they just don't have the velocity or the movement to get consistent whiffs in the zone. Maybe Daniel Lynch is that type of pitcher. Maybe he needs a little just to push it out of the zone, get ahead in the count and break it out a couple of times and see if you get a swing. But I think Daniel Lynch just might be like Brady Singer and he ends up in the bullpen.
Oh, God.
Because that's what I feel like is the end result for all of these Kansas City arms. Yeah,
go to the
bullpen. Like it is, because they had a really good process, a roadmap essentially to get back to competitiveness, and it really hasn't worked out yet.
Yeah. Think about Jackson Cowher. You still got Asa Lacy in the minors, and then they got the Hernandez kid. I forgot his name.
Yeah, Carlos Hernandez.
Hernandez.
And he wasn't even like a big time prospect. He just kind of threw hard.
Yeah, that was my point. He might be the guy who came out of nowhere. He's the guy who probably throws.
And he's better than all. And he's better than all of the first round picks.
That's a shame. All right. Well,
one thing I think is really interesting, and I'm sure it's not indicative of anything with Daniel Lynch. You can't be comparing these comparing Daniel Lynch to some of the names that I'm mentioning here. But I thought it was interesting how mixed of a bag it is when Baseball Savant has similar pitchers to Daniel Lynch based on velocity and movement. The 5 that they've chosen: 2022 Mackenzie Gore, 2022 Robbie Ray, 2022 Taylor Hearn, 2021 Tariq Skubal, and 2022 Patrick Sandoval.
That's a hell of a mixed bag.
That is such a mixed bag of pitchers.
I mean, 2021 Tariq Skubal wasn't that good, and neither is 2022 Taylor Hearn. But I think it's one of those. Lynch maybe just, I don't know. They're all such big-bodied pitchers, and I feel like they don't have the velocity that they should. Singers like that, Lynch is like that. These are all guys that are 6'5", 6'6", and they just don't throw all that hard.
It is definitely the weirdest thing with
but Daniel Lynch, I wouldn't classify him as a big body pitcher because he's 6'6" and weighs 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the height, it's the height.
Jacob deGrom, I think, weighs 180 pounds soaking wet. I mean, we saw what he was throwing. Bartolo Colon weighed like 400 pounds and was just like, here's an 86 mile an hour sinker. Here's an 85 mile an hour cutter. I'm going to sink it again. Bartolo Colon was so fun to watch. It was stupid.
Another guy that I don't want to forget about, Chris Bubich as well. That was another guy.
Bubich, yeah.
They had high hopes for, and Brad Keller too for a while I know he wasn't with the same kind of pedigree, but he was also someone that they were looking forward to for help.
I like Brad Keller, and I remember talking about him maybe a year or two ago on the show, and we were talking about his slider, and the slider's still a really good pitch, and I think Keller's having a career year this year. He's 2.19 ERA, avoiding barrels, getting a good amount of chases.
Avoiding strikeouts like always.
Yeah, avoiding not striking anyone out.
Not striking anybody out, yeah.
Hey, at least he's consistent.
So they what's his faces? Roster Resource changed around their the way they set up their minor league system on their team. So now I gotta dig for each level. Because before it was just you gotta go by position. Yeah, now you gotta go by level. So we mentioned Brady Singer, Jackson Cowher. Let's go to Double A. Who's it? I don't know who Angel Zerpa is, but number 10 prospect for the Royals. I've never heard of him. There's Asa Lacy right there, the number 2 prospect down at on the minors. And I thought there were more guys, but I guess not. But those are the so a lot of known names, Sean, is what I'm trying to say. But it's they haven't put in the results that they were anticipating, just to prove a point. I mean, the issue is not that they don't have anybody. The issue is that those people have not lived up to expectations.
Yeah, and I mean, Lauer easily, I wouldn't mind seeing him get another shot, but when he came up last year, he was like bad.
Yeah,
he would, and I think he could still end up being the best one of them. Yeah, I did not realize that Lauer actually pitched this year.
He did
he appeared in one game, went 3 1/3, struck out 4, but he gave up 11 hits and 7 earned runs. Yeah. I feel bad for the Royals. Like, all of these guys, like, everyone loved the picks. They assembled all of them together. Granted, in that outing, he had a 688 BABIP, so I think he might have gotten BABIP to hell.
All right,
because there was no home runs, 4 strikeouts, 1 walks, and 11 hits with 688 BABIP. Wow. Oof.
Yeah. All right. Last guy on the list is Christian Javier, someone that we've been talking about, anticipating for a long time. He got out to a great start as a relief pitcher, but then when you isolate the starting pitcher, I mean, it's only one game. He faced 20 batters, but so far the numbers don't look good. At least the peripherals don't look good. Everything's above 5 except for Sierra. Sierra's at 4.95, but the WHIP is at a respectable 120 for now. ERA is at 360 for now. But yeah, he seemed to have scaled back on the aggressiveness out there. The outside the swing rate is at 28.3. How is it with how does it look like when it was just as bad? I thought somebody had induced swings, but I think the big thing that we talked about, Sean, is that he's a guy that has these immaculate pitches and he what was it? He strikes out everybody that he sees, or doesn't give up any hits, is what it was, right?
Yeah, he doesn't give up any hits, because we talked about his hits allowed to innings pitched for his career, and you didn't believe me that it's like way less hits than innings pitched, like not even close. And but yeah, he has that invisible fastball that just it's not thrown him crazy hard. It's averaging 93.5, right around that for basically his entire career. But he gets so many swings and misses up in the zone, and it's a stupid pitch. And yeah, he should have been starting a long time ago.
Well, here's where the difference is since I'm just noticing them right now. Contact rate went up, obviously, when he became a starting pitcher. It's just one game, but it's worth noting. Let's see, I'm going back and forth between screens here. Zone rate, pitches that the hitters see inside the zone, went down, as it seemed like he was a little bit more conservative with how aggressive he was punching those pitches inside the strike zone. And lastly, the velocity went down. That's what we talked about, Austin. When you're reversing roles like that, going between relief pitcher and starting pitcher, there is a difference. So he went from having a pretty high velocity as a relief pitcher. Oh no, I'm so sorry. It's the same. Okay, it's the same velocity. My bad.
I was going to say, because I had looked at his player breakdown of that start, and there wasn't much of a velo change, if I remember correctly.
The hard hit rate went down. That's a good thing, but I guess he's not throwing it as hard, maybe.
Yeah, his average going into that start was 93.5, and his start against the Rangers, he averaged 94.3, so it almost went up a full mile per hour.
That's fascinating.
And he had 8 swings and misses on 25 swings on the 4-seam fastball. So he doesn't get as many swings and misses on the secondary stuff, but that 4-seamer is just, it makes no sense. It really doesn't.
Let's see here. His next start, I just saw it. His next start's against the Seattle Mariners. He's facing Chris Flexon. Austin, you like that matchup there?
Christian Javier against Chris Flexon.
Yeah, at home in Houston, by the way.
I don't know if I like that.
By the way,
I like that one.
Flexon and the Mariners are, they're putting it together. They have a decent offense now. I'm not sure if I like that or not. That one's a toss up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be one of those where both guys pitch for 5 innings and no one gets a decision. Maybe.
Yeah.
By the way, the Astros still going with a 6-man rotation, so that's another frustrating thing about this whole pitching scenario in 2022, where 6-man rotation. But the Astros, we talked about it, Sean. They're loaded at starting pitching, so this is probably the best way to get everybody their innings and their starts, and Justin Verlander getting
without
fresh.
burning everybody out like Verlander. Built-in innings controller. That's all it is.
On the downside, that means we get to see more Jake Odorizzi. Well, I mean, not more, but we still get to see him, Jake Odorizzi.
We still have to look at him. Gosh, how dare you, Jake?
All right, let's move on here. So, Chris, well, I don't know, Sean, that was only one start. Do you still like Christian Javier for the rest of the season?
Yeah.
Even if he's waiting his
turn. I wanted him to start at the beginning of the year. I mean, this was a decision that should have been made long before and just kept him in that rhythm, but whatever.
All right. Move
I
on.
think
Go ahead.
I think with Christian Javier, when you are a reliever and you go to starting and you go to a starting pitcher, or the other way around, whenever you change your role, there's always a mental adjustment that you have to make, that sometimes pitchers just can't get into that mental mind frame until they have a couple starts. Especially since he's doing it almost a quarter, a month into the season now. He's got to change from being a reliever to a starter, when at the beginning he had to get his mind frame as a reliever. So I think it'll take another start or two for us to see the Christian Javier that we were expecting to see. But I think he'll get there. The other thing that I thought was interesting was, and that I like about him, is it seems like his fastball is really heavy. His fastball, although, and he's throwing it at about 93.5 miles an hour, his fastball is dropping in terms of movement. It has a much more of a vertical movement than a typical average fastball, by, it looks like 9 inches there. Wow. It drops quite a bit. So it's a very heavy fastball, which is why he's not getting hit hard, right? And that's why if they hit it, they drive it into the ground.
He has less drop. That is? Yeah, that's higher. That's lower than average, which is good on a 4-seam fastball. That's why he has posted such insanely low ground ball percentages. He has like an insanely high fly ball percentage, but he also has a high home run to fly ball percentage. And batters hit 185 against him because it's nothing but fly balls or a swing and a miss. That's kind of how his fastball plays out. Because when I told Felipe earlier this year, hitters are batting 185 against Christian Javier for his career, and he was like, "No, it can't be that low." And I was like, it's 185, and it's a sizable, over the last 2 years, 3 years with Christian Javier. It was the same way in the minors too. It's a really interesting fastball that it definitely plays up, but it's. Saris, I think, referred to it as the invisible because they don't see it. I mean, it just comes right up at their head and they just swing, and that's kind of how they swing at it, I guess. So,
all right. Well, we'll see. Hopefully the Astros will come to their senses and drop Odorizzi from the rotation and go with a more traditional 5-man rotation.
Who could they trade Jake Odorizzi to? Who needs pitching?
Just
everybody,
but not Jake Odorizzi.
Jake Odorizzi. Like Oakland? I don't know. Like I feel like Jake Odorizzi would be a really good pitcher in Oakland with all that damn open territory for like foul ball outs.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Well, I mean, I don't know. The Astros
Google how much Jake Odorizzi is owed. Oakland be like, no, we can't pay for that.
All right, we're wrapping things up here. But let's see. Oh, man, there's a lot of pitchers here, but I don't know if I want to talk about each and every one of those guys. It's just a matter of do I want to add more or less? So a lot of these guys are relief pitchers, but yeah, it just depends if we believe. I mean, do we believe that Emilio Pagan is now the closer in Minnesota? Or are they going to
how many has he? what does roster resources? That's what's important here.
Well, no, they don't know because it's what's his face. It's Rocco Baldelli, right? Isn't he the manager over there?
Yeah, I think he's still there.
And he's been that's the reason why Taylor Rogers had to go, because they couldn't justify the $8 million for him to just to come and save sometimes. But it looks like Pagan is the closer, but they've also been good to use Yohan Duran. They've Griffin Jacks got a save the other day. I don't know who that guy is.
Wasn't Griffin Jacks is like a 3-inning, like a weird 3-inning save? Because he's normally a starter. So I remember I did see him get a save, and I was like, I wonder if it was one of those like bulk relief outings. Yeah, but they did say that they're not going to try and make Duran a starting pitcher anymore. So I think he would be the clear-cut favorite, but they also like using him in the highest leverage role rather than just the closer. So he might not get as many saves as we would like.
What about in Boston? Just yell it out. Who's the closer in Boston right now? Yell it out if you know it.
It's Jake Diekman, but it needs to not, or Matt Barnes, but it needs to not be either of them.
Well, Garrett Whitlock and Hansel Robles have also seen an.
Have gotten them. Yeah,
it's not Barnes.
Yeah, poor Austin. He learned the hard way. Don't trust Matt Barnes.
Well, I had Matt Barnes in the Mardi Gras League, and yeah, he's no longer on my team.
Yeah, so Felipe with Griffin Jacks was a 46 pitch save on Thursday. So definitely, I would guess a 3-inning one there. Also,
Garrett Whitlock is in the starting rotation for the Red Sox. So that brings Hansel Robles, Jake Diekman, and Matt Barnes listed as the closer by committee over there with Ryan Brasher.
Who would have thought that Hansel Robles was the best of all three? Surely not me.
I can't believe this.
I wanted the Mets to get Jake Diekman really bad, and now I'm glad they didn't.
I thought he looked awful. Hansel Robles did last year. I thought he looked horrible, and now he's getting a second win to his career at Boston. It's baseball, man. It's weird. It's wacky. It doesn't make any sense.
He's had himself a nice little career.
By the way, Matt Strahm also has gotten saved opportunities. Yeah,
Matt Strahm. No, thank you. Hard pass. I don't want Matt Strahm.
There's a guy. There's a guy who was supposed to be something too, Matt Strahm, and then arm injuries kind of derailed his career. Camilo Doval. He's only 72% of leagues. He doesn't count. All right, let's go to what I will resume. I think I'm going to go ahead and add Taijuan Walker to the list, but it's up to you guys to let me know who you guys want to talk about. So let me add him in, and we'll start with Austin. Austin, we got 5 pitchers. We only have a few minutes left together here. Or I don't know, Sean, how are we doing on time over there?
A little over an hour.
Oh, I know we started late, so maybe this will be the last.
It was at 15.
Oh, really? Okay, so we are a little bit over an hour. Okay, well, we probably will finish up with this. We got 5 guys here. You got Taijuan Walker, who I just mentioned, Glenn Otto from the Rangers, Chris Flexon. We just talked about him for a little bit, but mostly because of Christian Javier. He pitches for the Mariners. Michael Pineda for the Tigers, or Tyler Anderson for the LA Dodgers. Austin, who do you want to talk about?
I like Chris Flexon. Let's talk about Chris Flexon.
Sure.
So Chris Flexon is somebody that I've seen quite a bit because I'm an Angels fan, and he, for whatever reason, he's lights out against the Angels. Every time he goes up against the Angels, he pitches a 7-inning shutout, which is frustrating to no end. But this year, it looks like he's off to a pretty decent start, a 3.38 ERA, very similar FIP, 3.63 FIP, 15.6 percent strikeout rate, 6.3% walk rate, in 24 innings pitched. So he's averaging 6 innings a start, which you are not going to see a whole lot from these starting pitchers anymore, because most of them are going to go only 4 or 5 innings. So if you're in an innings pitched league, Flexon might be somebody you want to start. The problem with that is, when you look at his sliders on Baseball Savant, it's a lot of blue. It's not great. Average exit velocity is in the 16th percentile. Hard hit percentage is in the 20th percentile. Fastball velocity is in the 9th percentile. Whiff percentage is in the 31st percentile. K percentage is down. The only thing that is up is chase rate and walk rate. So he's not going to walk anybody. He's going to get people to chase, but the problem is they're going to make contact. And not only are they making contact, they're making kind of hard contact. So his average exit velocity for 2022 so far is 91.6, which is up about 2 miles an hour from 89.5 in 2021 and 89.6 in 2019. He relies very heavily on a fastball and on the inside part of the plate. You have four-seam fastball he throws at 41% of the time, and he lights up the inside of that plate there. And then a cutter, which he also throws to the inside of the plate there, which I don't know if I like that strategy, because then he throws a changeup outside. I feel like if he decides he's going to start throwing that cutter a little more, have that cutter break to the outside a little more, and then maybe throw that changeup low and inside, I think he would have a better shot at not getting the ball hit as hard, and maybe having a few more strikeouts. Like I said, I like Chris Flexon, but right now it seems like he's not necessarily the best option until he kind of figures himself out with that. Didn't you say the Mariners have a 6-man rotation?
I know.
I thought you said they had a 6-man rotation.
The Astros do. The
Astros do.
And the Mariners usually do like to use a lot of starting pitchers, though. So let me double check what roster resource says while this thing looks up.
Let's see. Roster resource has 5-pitcher rotation: Ray, Gilbert, Gonzalez, Flexon, and Brash.
Yeah.
And Brash might not last much longer. He's got Houston, I think, today, or for his lineup for his next start. But he can't throw strikes. And when he made that first career start against, I think it was the White Sox, or whoever he started against, everyone was like, "Oh, look how nasty that slider is." It was the White Sox, and I was like, "Yeah, he hasn't thrown it for a strike once, but they're swinging and missing, so it's fun."
It is the White Sox, though.
Yeah, and he has a 6.88 walks per 9. That comes out to a 17% walk percentage, striking out 20.8% of batters. That is not a great ratio to have there. It's a nasty pitch. I saw that in the White Sox game as well, but he doesn't know how to throw it for strikes, and major league hitters are too good. They will just stop swinging at it if they know you can't throw it for a strike. Which means if Brash goes down, we got some interesting names that they could call up that are down in AAA. So.
Well, speaking of
Justice Sheffield?
Oh God, no!
I was about to mention him too. Yeah, well, Justice Sheffield, but if all else fails, he's the long relief option for the Mariners. So for better or for worse, he does have starting pitching experience. So there's that. Speaking of 6-man rotations, I just want to double check something here with the Brewers. Yep, they have a 6-man rotation, and that's very frustrating if you own any of these Brewers pitchers, including Aaron Ashby, who pitched on Wednesday. So that usually means he should be slated for 2 starts the next week. Nope. He's going to be scheduled for this upcoming Wednesday, I should say, May 4th. So, no, I hate the Brewers. But you know what? Though?
I hate the Brewers. They're too damn good.
Too damn good. Too many pitchers. But you know what? It's the thing with the Astros, right? Where does David Stearns come from? The general manager, president, whatever his title is nowadays?
President of baseball.
Yeah, well, he comes from the Houston Astros, so it does not surprising that both those teams are using 2-man rotations. Yeah. 6-man rotations. Sorry.
When did Eric Lauer start striking everybody out?
I was going to talk about him. Then I realized he's only like in 90% of leagues. So
his last 2 starts, he has a 43% whiff rate on a 93 mile an hour fastball.
Nobody saw it coming. I don't get it.
What in the world? His strikeout rate before this year had never gotten higher than 23.9%. And that was last year. And now it's at 36%. What?
They traded away the right-handed version of Eric Lauer to get Eric Lauer. Zach Davies, right? Wasn't he the one who got traded to the
Eric Lauer makes Zach Davies makes Eric Lauer look like Randy Johnson. Like I knew Eric Lauer didn't throw hard, but like it's okay. So he's up to 93.9 from 92.6 and 91.5. the last few years, but it's like all of a sudden he's what? He struck out 11 or 13 yesterday. He struck out 11. He struck out 11 and then 13 to start before that against Philly.
I wonder if it's because he's relying a little more at the beginning of the season. He's relying a little more on breaking balls. The number of pitches, in terms of percentage, the number of forcing fastballs he has is down. So in 2021, he threw 43.9% fastballs. 2020, 52% fastballs. 2019 looks like 53.1% fastballs. In 2022, he's thrown 36.2% of his pitches as fastballs. So all of his breaking pitches, his slider, his curveball, his cutter are up. Right. Yeah. And he's still not using a changeup a whole lot, but he is relying a little more on breaking balls, and his slider, he's throwing to the outside of the zone, whereas his fastball is in and up a little bit. His curveball seems to be, I don't think he's locating his curveball very well. It looks like it's either down and away or he's leaving it hanging in the middle of the plate. The cutter seems to be, he likes to throw it on the outside. So maybe he's lulling everybody to sleep on the outside and then bangs them in with the forcing fastball high and in. So he may be changing the way he's pitching, and he's relying on those breaking balls a little bit to get deeper into counts and then strike them out.
He really hasn't faced any lefties so far this year.
Ooh,
Eric Lauer.
Eric Lauer. Oh, right.
Yeah, I was looking to see, like, because he's not throwing a high percentage of any of his off-speed slider curveball to lefties, and then I just went and realized he's only faced not even a dozen. So, interesting. So he's doing all of this as a lefty against primarily right-handed hitters, which I think makes the whole thing even more impressive. That's a hell of a thing.
All right. Really quick before I beat this, I'd be kicking myself if I didn't mention the following relief pitchers before we move on to Sean's guy that we talk about. And I think we'll finish right there. Let's see, where are they? Okay. I just lost it. Here we go. Anthony Bender getting all the save opportunities in Miami. Lucas Sims is now the lone closer for the Reds. Unfortunately, it's the Reds. And Emilio Pagan, one more time, he is the closer for the Twins. So, choose wisely. But I think Bender might be the guy to go here of those three, just because he's getting all the save opportunities and he looks a lot better than he did at the beginning of the season. So that's that. Sean, your guy, who is it? Do you need me to rename the
yes, the list, please.
Okay, so not including Chris Flexon anymore because we already talked about him. Tyler Anderson, Michael Pineda, Taijuan Walker, or Glenn Otto.
Let's do Glenn Otto.
Yes.
And I can dunk on myself because this is a mistake that I made in the offseason. He was a guy that once he got traded over from the Yankees in the Joey Gallo deal, I really liked. I picked him up. He made his debut last year. He had I believe it was not the debut. It was the game after his debut. He had a rough start. I think the first time. No, it was his debut. He debuted against Houston last year, August 27th, went 5 innings, only gave up 2 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts against the Astros. Great offense. And I did not start him because I was like, hey, rookie making his debut against a tough team. And then I put him on the bench. And then he pitched against the Angels the next day, went through 4 2/3, 2 runs. I was like, okay, that wasn't too bad. And then he got blown up by the Athletics and Astros in back-to-back starts, gave up 15 earned runs in a combined 6 2/3. I still held him on the roster, but I dropped him this offseason due to a roster crunch, guys coming off the IL. And Andrew O'Sullivan, friend of the show, also in that 30-team league, picks up Glenn Otto after I drop him. And now Glenn Otto's off to a nice little hot start. And I believe he pitches today. We'll see how he does, but the velocity was up. He's always been a plus slider guy. As long as he can maintain the velocity, I really do like Glenn Otto. He has to keep that fastball a little bit higher in terms of velo. The slider, 64.5% whiffs on his swings this year. That and command, always going to be the most important things for a young pitcher. But yeah, really like Glenn Otto. And even though I was the first guy in on him in that league, I did not believe in him enough to keep him. And now I'm having to take it. Oh, and it was funny because I lost to Andrew O'Sullivan he was one of my first matchups in the first 2 weeks, and Glenn Otto had, a great start and put up like 15 points on me. And I was like, come on.
No, Glenn Otto's a guy that when Austin and I were doing our spreadsheets, that's probably the only Texas Rangers pitcher I was excited about this offseason. But again, it just depended on if he was going to actually come out of spring training in the starting rotation.
Yeah, I thought he was bullpen fodder. Yeah, I thought he was just going to be like a bullpen ace, but they've just sent him to AAA.
Worst case scenario, yeah, bullpen ace. But considering what the other options were, I thought that Glenn Otto had a really good chance of doing something, taking advantage of that situation. So keep an eye on him. And then who are the other guys? Michael Pineda, he sucks. Tyler Anderson, I don't trust him right now. I wouldn't do it.
Taijuan Walker came back last night, pitched, went 5 innings. He's looked pretty good. He looks definitely better than even like the first half last year when he was an all-star. The velo seems to be up a little bit. He's throwing the splitter more to get those lefties off of him in the zone. And he looks like a young Bartolo Colon. He's got the little fro coming out the back of his hat now, kind of like me, except I got the just the long curls, but he looks like a young Bartolo or like J.R. Richard. Like that. That's the vibe I'm getting from Taijuan Walker right now.
All right, then. And that is the show. I mean, I did pull up the 5 pitchers, the relief pitchers, but so far Emilio Pagan, just awful Sierra, awful everything, awful whip. He has a whip of 1.59 so far this season. Sierra's up at 5.17. Of the 5 relief pitchers we talked about that are probably have an inside shot at the closer's role: Jorge Lopez, Danny Jimenez, Anthony Bender, Lucas Sims, and Emilio Pagan. Pagan has the highest Sierra, which is a Skills Interactive ERA of 5.17.
Oh,
Emilio Pagan does, and also has the highest barrel rate at 15.4%. So maybe don't go out and get what's his face, Emilio Pagan.
Yeah.
And then of course Jimenez is a temporary solution. Anthony Bender is still kind of climbing his way out of a really rough start to the beginning of the season, and Lucas Sims has a 7.7 strikeout rate so far in 2022. So that's not going to cut the mustard here.
I think Bender's biggest problem is he's going to be a matchup closer. I think he has a lot of struggles with left-handed hitters. I almost see like a closer platoon between Tanner Scott and Anthony Bender. Tanner Scott finally is with a team that's giving him those chances. He's looked good a couple of times and he's looked terrible a couple of times. But Tanner Scott, that's a guy that we've been waiting on for a long time as Zach Britton Jr. And we'll see how he does.
Well, so far this week, he's only been doing regular relief pitching duty. There's no holds. There's no save opportunities so far for Tanner Scott this past week. And guess what? All the save opportunities that don't go to Anthony Bender, they go to Tanner Scott's former Orioles teammate, Cole Sulser.
Oh, God. Yeah. Of course, that's going to be the guy that gets the most saves for the Marlins. The least interesting guy is the one that gets all the saves. Like Tanner Scott's going to be over here striking out 42% of batters, which is at 41.7 now. And the Marlins are going to be like, guys, we got to get Cole Sulser some saves, because you know what? They're going to trade Sulser at the deadline and get a couple of prospects, because that's what they always do. But Tanner Scott, Tanner Scott, I'll never get over you.
No, it's like I said, we've been waiting forever, and it for whatever reason it doesn't work out for the guy. So
he's got one save.
Yeah, but he should have many saves.
He should have many saves.
Why have one save when many is better?
Why use many pitches when few pitches do trick? And relief pitchers everywhere. Why use many pitches when few pitches?
And on that note, that is how we're going to end this show here with the Office reference. Austin, any last words for the people out there?
Not much. Go check my other podcast that I'm part of, or that I run myself, the Round Trippers podcast. I'll have another episode up here soon where I will have Melvin on as a guest. Yeah, so it should be an exciting new episode. We're going to talk about is a combined no hitter an achievement. I'm sure we will talk about I'm sure we'll talk about Trevor Bauer a little bit. We'll talk a little news, and I'm sure since Melvin is on, we'll talk a little bit about international baseball. So check that out. And you can find me on Twitter at @round_trippers.
Just let me know when I can skip the part about the no hitters and go straight to the international play. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes.
We have gone this entire podcast. What is on your hat?
It's L7 weenie.
Oh, okay. And they looked like hot dog weenies, but
they are hot dog weenies.
Are there glasses on one? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Because it squints.
Okay. I was wondering. I was like, what the hell? Oh, he's got the matching shirt to go with it.
Shirt to match.
Oh,
they look like penises to me.
Hey.
Well, they are wieners.
Hey. PG.
Sean, any last words for the people out there?
Don't be an L7 weenie. We'll see you next week.
Weenies.
Have a good one, everybody. Thanks a lot.
See ya.